Dear participants, for today's morning session, second session, we have my own senior colleague, Professor HR Uma. I am delighted and happy to introduce Professor Uma Madam for this second session and to my dear teacher participants. Dear participants, Madam has done her master's in 1993 in the University of Mysore and cleared twice UGC and she also cleared JRF and worked for her PhD and completed PhD in 1998. Meanwhile, Madam also got selected in KPSC during 1996 and later Madam joined university in the year 1999. And as a professor, Madam has worked in many capacities. Madam also served as a special officer for the PhD section, University of Mysore since during 2011. Member also served as chairperson for BOS, BOE for the University of Mysore as well as the many universities in the Karnataka. Madam is also member for the Faculty of Arts and Spares, University of Mysore. Madam worked as director, MVPG Center, University of Mysore during the period 2017 and 19, and completed many three research projects, so which were sponsored by, funded by UGC and ICSSR and other institutes, other funding agencies. Madam also awarded with UGC Research Award during the period 2016 and 17. Madam successfully guided 12 PhD students and currently 8 students are working for their PhD. So many students have also got their PhD under the supervision of Madam Professor Uma. Madam, as a professor, as a teacher, as a director of the center, MVPG Center, organized many seminars and invited many authorities in economics and other disciplines to address our students and others. Visited almost all the universities in Karnataka and visited many universities within India. Madam also visited many universities in many countries. So, as an economic under the professor, Madam has visited many countries with academic work. To name few of them: UAE, Thailand, Sri Lanka, Switzerland, France, Australia, Ireland, England, and participated in many international seminars in these universities and did lot of academic works in these countries. Madam has published more than 100 papers in many reputed journals and also presented papers in conferences and seminars. Madam participated in invited lectures and chaired many sessions and delivered talks and guided PhD students, the MPhil students, evaluated theses and many more. So Madam actively participated in teaching and research in the last 27 years. So with rich experiences in human development, because Madam has done a lot of work on human development and related issues, particularly Madam worked on health issues. So health is the most important component of human development, and she is the authority on that area of human development and sustainable development. Today, Madam is going to deliver the talk on aging population and sustainable development. Dear participants, with this brief introduction to Madam, I wholeheartedly welcoming Madam for this second sessions to address you people. Madam, on behalf of HRDC Mysore, and our participants and my own behalf of it. I am very glad to welcome and invite you, madam.
Thank you so much, sir.
Madam.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So good morning, one and all. To be frank, I prefer to be in academic staff college mainly because of this. Sometimes the technical aspects will always trouble us. Good morning. Good morning to one and all. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Prem Kumar for giving me this opportunity. It's really a wonderful morning to be with all of you. The screen is showing very limited number, and I don't want to go in search of familiar faces because that may trouble me again. So I'm quite familiar with Google Meet. Zoom is rarely used.
Madam, this time we have 36 participants from different states. Almost we have candidates from 8 states, madam.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Okay. And I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks even to the Academic Staff College staff and University of Mysore for this opportunity. And as all of you are well exposed to the sustainable development issues all these days, almost the preliminary aspects has been well known to all the members of this group. So the beauty of this refresher course is that we will get exposed to one particular topic where a lot of different dimensions will be given to us. It's a really wonderful thing that I prefer to be a participant always, because we get to know how people vary from one to another regarding the perception of a particular topic and how they interpret that topic related issues, different issues. So it's a privilege for me to be in this group. And I have tried to link this sustainable development to one of the topics, namely aging population. As all of you are quite aware of this topic, the whole world is experiencing. Aging population is one of the areas which has not been directly taken into consideration in our sustainable development goals. But definitely everybody is aware of the fact that it is the coming future. All of us probably by 2030, I think all of us are going to be in the that age group, at least nearing that age group probably. And it is our responsibility to think more about it, because we are going to be the victims of that period. And you are by now you are quite familiar with the meaning of sustainable development and the relevance of sustainable development to the whole world as it is. And it is said sustainable development, it implies development that meets the present needs without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. So we are, of course, the present generation, we are here, and we have to think more about the next generation. Sustainability speaks about that, without compromising our things, without compromising our needs, and also taking care of the next generation. But sustainable development targets speak about reaching goals by 2030. And 2030 will be the period when most of us, the present generation, will be in another, now it is approximately we are close by, but when the goals were given, it was like next generation, another 30 years, how it's going to be to reach out to the targets. But now this present generation has to think in terms of we are going to be there, not as our next generation, but as we are the coming another 10 to 15 years probably, we will be in that group of the population which can be considered aging population. So definitely it is not only for thinking about our future generation, it is also a sort of thinking about our own future by 2030. So the crucial point here is sustainability has to deal with our own sustainable living in the coming days. So I felt the importance of looking into this particular issue, aging population, demographic transition, demographic changes, which are going to be very, very obvious by 2030, and planning for poverty eradication or whatever the issues which has been there as sustainable development goals. You have to keep it in mind that by another 10 years, 15 years, the needs of the society, needs of the economy, needs of the countries will definitely will be different, will be changing depending on this transition. So it's very essential, and even United Nations later realized the importance of this, and they brought this issue into consideration, saying that it is inclusion of everybody. When we speak about poverty eradication, when we speak about gender issues, you have to take that part of the aged population also into consideration, and the future belongs to the aging population, and we cannot live without taking care of that particular group. So the sustainable development becomes very relevant as far as aging population is concerned. Sustainable development, it is nothing but balancing and strategic intervention of bringing tangible impact for satisfying the requirements in the economy by considering environmental, social, political, and economic limitations. You have seen the sustainability given more importance to environmental aspects, environmental degradation or environmental exploitation of resources. These issues taken more into consideration because of the relevance which the whole world has given to these issues. And demography probably has not been considered as a crucial factor, because we have seen a lot of changes in the demography, and demographic structure has changed drastically over a period of time, and positively probably for the economic development. But the future of this demography may not be very beneficial to us, and also it may not be very beneficial to the economy as a whole. So that is where I felt the relevance of taking aging population for the sustainable development is very, very crucial, because the impact of aging population on fiscal stability is also very, very keenly observed over the years by developed countries particularly. So we all know the Sustainable Development Goals 17, and the General Assembly of United Nations has adopted that agenda, transforming our world to a different one with the help of these 17 goals. You have already gone through these Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 goals, which have taken into consideration many issues, crucial issues like poverty, hunger, environment, life on in lands, and also some ethical issues of issues like reducing inequalities, and something like production and consumption, gender equality, clean water, quality education. So all are definitely very, very relevant as goals. Sustainable development, if it happens in time, like 2030, probably we are going to have a heavenly world to live with. And this is quite known by the name 2030 Agenda, which highly speaks about transformational issues. It wanted to see the world transformed into a new one where you have all the benefits, and the highlight is leave no one behind. The 2030 Agenda doesn't want to leave anybody behind, irrespective of their gender, age, religion, region, background, whatever it is. So when it is committed to this agenda, leaving no one behind, then obviously you have to take into consideration that all the ages has to be given equal weightage. So implementation of all sustainable development goals, it must be based on equality, social justice, human dignity across the life, and it has to recognize the older people who are deprived of many things, to have an equal right to development. We always look at old people as somebody who has seen the world, and we never keep them equal as far as the rights to enjoy, right to development, right to consumption, whatever it is. We always think they have completed their life and now it is not for them. But when the number of old people is increasing throughout the globe, it is our responsibility to look through the rights which they have to be given, and also the welfare concepts which are there has to be delivered to all the people irrespective of their age. This has been recognized by United Nations also, and UN Secretary General suggested saying that recognize age as one of the cross-cutting issues that must be taken into account across all goals and targets. The the Sustainable Development Goals were given to the member states to achieve, and United Nations told them to see aging as something which is a cross-cutting issue irrespective of age. So they also give some suggestions to the countries saying create a universal right-based framework irrespective of the age or gender, whatever it is. You have to create a universal, a common right-based framework, eradicate poverty in all its forms for all people. So these are the statements which highlight that United Nations is giving importance, is stressing the fact that older people or old age people should not be recognized in a marathon towards sustainable development. So leave no one behind by tackling inequality, exclusion. So it is an inclusive policy. You should not discriminate people on the basis of gender, disability, age, or whatever it is. Inclusion, take everybody together towards the development. Promote inclusive growth, decent employment, social protection. You can see the improvement of health by addressing universal healthcare coverage, access, affordability, and promote better accountability through a data revolution. The United Nations Secretary General, United Nations as a whole, has given clues to the member states regarding not neglecting aging as a non-factor, or to say not to neglect aging because it is not specifically mentioned in the Sustainable Development Goals. So aging is something which has to be taken into consideration under all the goals, because you have to see equality, you have to bring inclusion, you have to make everybody go together towards development. Then you have to think about this group of population which is increasing in a very fast rate and is also depriving as far as its rights to development is concerned. So this very fact make the member states to work on aging population, because the future belongs to aging population. So we all know that the population is aging throughout the globe, and we call it age bulge. The age bulge is happening. To be frank, the effect of rapid population aging across the world is only saying that by 2030, there will be more number of old people over 60 than children under 10. So this has happened individually in many countries. And for a country like Japan, where 6 pair of grandparents own 1 child, approximately on an average, the country has so many old people and so many less number of younger generation. And by 2050, there will be something approximately 2 billion older people on the planet. And majority of them will be women. The life expectancy of women is comparatively more than men, leading to more number of old aged women than men. Currently, there is 84 men for every 100 women. You can see the sex ratio of the old people is favorable to women. Though in a country like India, we have less number of women per 1,000 population, men population, but it is showing that after 60, the number of men will be less compared to women. 84 is too less a number per 100 women over the age of 60 to 65. Sorry, it is not 605, it is 60 to 65. And another tragedy is most of the older population will be living in developing countries like us. So this is where the relevance of old people, men and women, has increased, and their participation and their relevance in the economic development has to be taken into consideration. And it was in 2015 only this realization has happened, because the rate of growth of older population is increasing, and it is not only increasing with a higher rate of increase. We're all familiar with the population pyramid. It is a pyramid shaped thing, as all of us know, which speaks about different layers of population showing different levels of age. So normally a developing country will be having a typical pyramid-like structure. And over the years, with development, with economic development particularly, we have seen the change in the population pyramid. It has changed its shape, and the base of the population pyramid, which is representing the younger population, is becoming smaller and smaller. And over a period of time, the middle portion increases, and the overly developed countries, what we say, the highly developed countries are having a population pyramid with a smaller base and a bigger upper portion. This is a typical change which we can see in the population pyramid over the population transition. Demographic transition has seen such changes. So the pyramid shape itself will give an idea about other status, economic status of a country. Also, the demographic situation is linked to some extent to the economic status of a country. There are estimated 962 million people aged 60 or over in the world, accounting for 13% of global population. And the number of older people in the world is projected to be 1.4 billion in 2030. 2030 has been taken specifically because the target year for Sustainable Development Goals is 2030. And it will be, you can see by 2050, it will increase to 2.1 billion, and 2100, it may cross 3.1 billion. So this is a very huge number, and that speaks about what is the percentage of population going to be graying over a period of time. In another not even 100 years, we will be having grayer population, that's older populations more in our on the world. So as I told you, this is some typical examples of population pyramid, which is showing a transition. Look at the first one, where it is a typical pyramid, male, female, the base is bigger and the peak is very, very thin, showing the number of old people is relatively less and are more in number. And with growth, slow growth, you can see the changes happening. The fertility rate is coming down and the mortality rate is coming down, and that is leading to the shrinking of the base, and then it will become almost a neutral zero growth rate, because almost it looks like a cube. The base, upper portion, everything will be the sleek, slender bar, and the negative growth will be seen in the fourth one, where the base is very small and the middle portion and upper portion is becoming bigger. And this population pyramid speaks about the productivity, of economic productivity, as well as the population productivity rate also. When the base is big, we can expect the next generation to be more productive, and the country will definitely have a good productive population in the coming years. But when the base is very small and the upper portion is big, then the country can expect less number of productive agents in the coming days, and more responsibility of the older population, which may affect the fiscal status of a country. We are almost well versed with this demographic transition, theory of demographic transition with 5 stages. The lower portion is showing different pyramids. See how the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth stages are having different fertility and mortality rate. The first stage is always having a very high fertility and simultaneously very high mortality rate. As it is, the total population will be definitely 0 or very close to 0. And then the death rate starts declining very fast in the second stage because of the medical intervention. Good medicines or good treatment may lead to lessening of death rate suddenly, but fertility rate keeps going at high rate, leading to increase in the population. And the third stage, birth rate starts declining, but not as low as the death rate. That is also the portion which is explained as population explosion in a demographic studies, the second, third stage. And then people come to realize that deaths have definitely come down and death risk has come down. So the fourth stage, you can see both have come down and they reach the lower level, and then they sustain at the same level. And this demographic transition is inevitable. It is happening in almost all the developing and developed countries. We also have seen the explosion, population explosion in our own country. And now we are almost have come to the fourth stage and we are getting stabilized. People have realized the importance of having a small family and to have a to enjoy economic status. And this has led to reduction in the fertility rate. And medical knowledge or medical facilities have definitely brought down the death rate to such an extent that now we are in a country like India, it's almost common to see people of 80 plus, 90 plus living a very comfortable life. So demographic transition is a phase. It's going to happen, and along with that, we can also link up our economic development stages too. This is another diagram showing different estimated one also is there. 2050, 2017, and 2100 world population. The chart will speak how the demographic transition is happening over a period of time. You can see both men and women also, and also you can see the changing structure of the pyramid. It is peak, a typical pyramid shape is getting changed to almost a rectangular size. Probably by 2100, it's going to be something like this. So this not only gives an idea about how the transition is going to be in the coming days, but also gives the responsibility of making it work for not only for the people, but also for the government to sustain the economy, to sustain the society for a longer time with a population like this. So this is very relevant, irrespective of whether a country is developing or a developed country. And why population is aging? As we all know, the population is aging because of two main factors: the falling mortality rate and low fertility rate. And the first one happened is the declining mortality rate. And you might have heard that 2011 as the year of Great Divide. It is known in demographic studies as the year of Great Divide because prior to that, we used to have the whole world, the whole world used to have a very high level of fertility rate and a very high level of mortality rate, leading to almost nil increase in the population. The population increase was very, very insignificant. And people used to have more number of children because they know most of the children will going to die in another 6 to 8 months probably, and they're going to have 1 or 2 children with them living. And the life expectancy was as low as 27, 28 years at that time. If a person lives up to 30 years, people used to say probably he has seen everything in the world. He has seen the life, probably, because that is something which is the life expectancy, general life expectancy of the population. And 2011, afterwards, we have seen the transition of the demography, the way it is happening now. The decline in the mortality rate, later the decline in fertility and mortality rate, and sustaining the population at one particular level, and the population explosion in countries like India. Many countries, many developing countries have experienced this. And we also realized that what Malthusian theory said was to some extent has really worked in a country, developing countries particularly. We have experienced the population explosion. Most of the countries having a very high fertility rate, having more number of children, making lot of consumption, made the developed countries feel that these countries are simply identification of mass consumption, and they're not going to be developing economically because they have nothing to invest to grow, nothing to invest to produce, because most of their capital is going towards their children, feeding their children. And this also made us feel that population is a burden. Population is something, is a nuisance, and countries like India and China wanted to reduce the population pressure so that they can come out of this explosion of population. And India, of course, we did follow some stringent measures, not like China, definitely, but China is strictly because it is a country with socialistic Marxist base. They went strictly for one baby norm, and drastically they are able to reduce their population to 1%. The fertility rate came down drastically to 1. But India, because of our cultural background, religious beliefs, whatever it is, India, though under Indira Gandhi tenure, we tried some of the measures, but it went against the government, and emergency was the period where the forceful family planning efforts were failed miserably, and the government lost its face because of its decisions for controlling the population. But later on, they realized that such forceful things will not yield good results, and they went for other measures to control the population. But China experienced a wonderful reduction in the population, and every couple were forced to have only one child, and that really helped China to reduce the population drastically and comfortably. And the lower fertility rate, as all of us know, means lesser younger people entering the population, and falling mortality rate definitely means having more number of old people above 65 over a period of time. The population starts getting graying, it starts becoming older. And demographic trends, as all of us know, is showing a tendency towards aging. The current situation, we can say the whole world is aging, irrespective of their economic status. The pace at which demographic transition develops, though it varies from countries to country, region to region, but definitely all the regions are experiencing this demographic transition. So this is particularly critical in the less developed countries, where older population is increasing substantially faster. When people ask why we have to think about aged population, or when the countries are neglecting this particular thing, they think that aging is the problem of developed countries. But the glaring difference, what we are seeing is the less developed countries are seeing faster increase in the older population than the developed countries. Because developing countries had higher fertility, they had higher mortality rate, And when the mortality rate has come down drastically, obviously the older population is increasing, and developed countries are taking care of these issues than less developed countries, because to us it is it to be taken seriously as a vivid reason for our economy. It is expected that by it was by 2000, Latin America and Caribbean countries had 41 million elderly population, which is 7.2% of the total population, and they are expected a rise to 10.8% by 2025. It shows even in the countries, Latin American and Caribbean countries also, the rate of growth of population, older population, is much, much higher than expected. And India or China, for that matter, they have seen the population exploding, and we obviously have a very big base. Even now we are having a comfortable base, that is the child population. Children are more in number, satisfactorily good number of children we are having. And when the Chinese population control was successful compared to Indian population control, people used to think that China is going to be a superpower in the coming days because the population has come under control and the productivity has increased and GDP, everything has been much, much better compared to India. And this was questioned by somebody else, saying that China may not be having a privileged future because China is having a very small base. Number of children has gone down drastically in China, that in the coming future, Chinese productive population may not be as good as India. And they started predicting India as the next third generation superpower. And this has made us realize that the so-called population explosion which has happened is not altogether a drawback to a country, because the child population is definitely going to be a young population, adult population, working population in the coming next generation probably. So the present day child definitely will be an adult by another 20-25 years and is going to contribute to the world, to the productivity of the country or to the family as it is. So this positivity has come into the mind of policymakers, and they started saying this as a dividend, demographic dividend, because demography, the human resource as it is, when the children are there, more number of children, definitely we treat them more number of consumers. But this is also a way of investing in human resource. We educate children, we feed children, because it is not something like consumption. It is a sort of investment on children so that they are going to be a more productive, more efficient workers in the coming days. So this has been identified, and this is considered as a demographic dividend. So at the early phase of demographic transition, yes, an increase in the proportion of workers enhances aggregate consumption, cumulative investments, total labor input, output, and it is definitely a positivity called demographic dividend. But if this transition progresses another 30 years, yes, it's a very productive age group. Plus 30 years, 60, we have to think even about that movement, that progression, that transition. So a significant drop in labor supply due to lowering fertility and mortality rates lowers aggregate output as well as domestic savings, thus a decrease in investment. This change in economic behavior can cause sluggish economic growth and potentially threaten national reserves as well as economic stability. So demographic dividend, of course, it's really positive one, but you have to think about the continuity of this transition of age, continuous aging, where the productivity starts declining, and the responsibility of this group increases, and it may become a burden to the economy, to the government. Look at this comparison 2010 and 2050, 40 years, right? So 2030 comes between this, the Sustainable Development Goal year 2030, and just half, make it half. Probably you are going to have an idea of how it will be by 2030. The rate of increase in the elderly population in all these countries, how it was in 2010 and how it will be in 2050, including India, we can see a very huge rise in the old age population. Look at Japan, it is 22.6 in 2010, and another 20 years, it will be something like 39.3, 40, nothing, it's almost close to half the population, which is really a very big burden to the country, to the economy. Definitely 40% of the population is old age population, means it's a very risky thing for the country if it is not geared up to that, expecting what to do by another 10 years. Otherwise, it's very difficult to manage for any country, developed or developing country. This is a comparison. And we know this definitely has a impact. Of course, old age is an inevitable thing. Everyone has to pass through it if we live. And the life expectancy has increased in almost all the countries. And this increased life expectancy, though we show it as one of the plus points under human development, we have to think very seriously about the management of this increasing population, not only in developed countries, but also in developing countries. Because if you want to sustain your development, you have to take a serious note on this demographic transition, which is inevitable and which is happening almost all over the world. So the impact is multifaceted. You have so many different types of impact seen on the economy, on an individual, and on a society as a whole. So population aging is one of the most important feature of 21st century, and it is one of the main features taken seriously by most of the economies. Aging of the population affects all aspects of the society, including health, social security, education, socio-cultural activities, family life, labor market. It is something which is inevitably a country or a family has to face, if not today, probably in the coming days, because aging has so many impacts on the society. Regarding the later, a decline in the young population of working age lowers the labor force participation, leading to a rise in the proportion of retired people. So we are having more number of people, means the labor force going out of the labor market is more, leading to less number of workers in the activity, and also having less production, which may directly affect the overall growth of a country. Aging population has a number of economic implications also. These include income support for the extended retirement period, consumption, production, structure of labor market, change in housing, needs of transport, expenditure on health. All these we can see very vividly that it's going to affect the public finance of a country, and it can affect the employment and economic dependency of an individual also. So though it is something which is happening every moment, aging, the implications of this on the economy as a whole, though it is not very visible in countries like India, it is becoming a threat to most of the developing countries, because along with the aging, so many other factors are getting linked, and we can see how it is going to affect not only their productivity, but also the productivity of those who are linked to people. Every house is having 2 or 3 couple. For each productive couple, you're going to have 2 or 3 aged couple to manage, to take care. And every family is having very less number of children, less than 1 kid, probably in countries like Japan or Sweden or Spain. Very low level of fertility has led to very less number of children in a family and more number of aged population to take care. Children, of course, we consider them as an investment. We invest on them thinking that they are going to be productive in the coming days. But older population, it is pure consumption. And that is also not something which is exuberant, but it is very limited and very inelastic type of consumption, which may not in any way contributing to the consumer market also. So it's very difficult. It is something which you have to think very seriously, because neither you can leave it nor you can have it, in the sense the government has to be well prepared to face such situations in the coming days. It's going to be another economic burden to the country if the country has not taken these things very seriously. And all of us know the impact of health, aging population on health system is very huge, and it's very clear, vivid. And the increase in the number of older population causes lot of health related issues. So in 2017, a study says the increasing proportion of people over the age of 65 could lead to a higher incidence of chronic degenerative diseases. So the economic development of a country improves. It definitely takes along with it aging population. And definitely there is a scene of shifting from contagious diseases to lifestyle diseases. Now we are able to control all the infectious diseases. Of course, COVID is an exception, which came as a sudden threat to the world. Otherwise, we do have vaccinated against most of the infectious diseases. But the degenerative diseases, the lifestyle related diseases like blood pressure or sugar, diabetes, or heart diseases, degenerating brain diseases, these are increasing in number along with the aging population. So once upon a time, people used to have very less years of life expectancy. They used to die for 30 years, 35 years. Probably these diseases were not very visible to that population. They might have no idea of what is diabetes, what is hypertension, probably. But along with the increased population aging, these are the new diseases which are coming with the aging population. And now you can see everywhere, irrespective of whether they are in rural or urban area, they are in India or America, you can see most of the people are having one or the other chronic degenerative diseases, lifestyle related diseases. And we are spending a lot of money towards that. Of course, the medical technology is quite advanced and we are getting treatment for that. But the investment we are making on these things has increased like anything. The impact on health spending is very high. According to the research, the total spent on Italy's health sector accounts for 9.2% of the country's GDP in 2012, which is almost nearer to OECD countries, that is 9.3%. Like, irrespective of their economic status, you can see a huge amount of GDP is getting contributed towards the health sector. That speaks about how the aging population is linked, is influencing the health system of a country. And aging population has also some serious problems regarding adequate income for their later life. The majority of the elder population do not have retirement benefit, like they are not formally employed people like us, and other means of old age security schemes such as public assistance or safety net programs, health or life insurance schemes, labor market participation, investment arrangements, etc. So in a country like India, for example, we have more number of informal sector people. More of our people are not government employees, so they don't get the benefit. Formal pensions were not given. And along with that, this population has been neglected over the years because we never bothered to give any special care for these people. And that has led to a lot of drawbacks in the sense having proper programs for their social security or life insurance schemes or any other labor market participation, special permissions for them. All these were not there, and they are really a neglected group in countries like India, because taking care of the productive group, taking care of the children itself is a big burden for most of the households, and they never bother to take care of this group, and they always expect more from this group than wanted to give anything to them. So there's a huge drawback as far as income support is concerned in less developed countries, and also in informal sector people. And number of pensioners retiring under the civil service pension scheme has increased annually by 2.61%, while expenditure has escalated annually by 14%. So even when you take into consideration the organized sector or informal sectors, the pensions scheme has showing an escalated expenditure, which is definitely, of course, a burden to the government. These trends in expenditure on pension reveals serious implications of aging on public finance, public investment, and economic development of any country. So one thing, not giving proper pensions, or those who are aging in the informal sector, they don't have proper security. Another, those who are getting pensions properly are those who are retiring, the retirement section of the people, they are becoming a burden to the government, to the public finance, because this is an additional amount which is which government has to give to these people, which is increasing in amount, in number. So that will definitely bring us to the point of fiscal sustainability. So the impact of population aging is enormous, and it is multifaceted. A lot of complications are there. You can look into the deteriorating fiscal balance. You can see the changes in patterns of saving and investment, shortage in labor supply, lack of adequate welfare system, particularly in developing countries, and a possible decline in productivity and economic growth, and ineffectiveness of macroeconomic policy. So all these can be linked to aging population. It is influencing so many factors of the economy, and particularly it is bringing imbalance in the fiscal status of a country. So we do speak about fiscal sustainability, which is also known as public finance sustainability. I'm not saying the old age, older people or aging factor is the only thing which is bringing a pressure on fiscal sustainability. But it is one of the major issues probably in the coming days, since sustainable development goals has not taken aging directly into consideration. I feel the fiscal sustainability is going to be threatened by this aging population if it is not taken care in the proper way. That is the highlight of this work. So fiscal sustainability, definitely the European Commission has defined fiscal public finance sustainability or fiscal sustainability as the ability of a government to sustain its current spending, tax, and other policies in the long run without threatening the government's solvency or without defaulting on some of the government's liabilities or promised expenditure. So government has to think in terms of maintaining its fiscal status. Fiscal sustainability is very, very important. Many developed countries do give every year annual reports on fiscal sustainability. And tax is very, very important one for any government to have as a revenue. It's very important. And to give tax, one has, particularly the income tax, one has to be a working population. So when more number of people are going out of the working population, more number of people are becoming aged, becoming retired, then that will definitely affect the revenue of any government, threatening a government's solvency or threatening a government to go for defaulting sometimes, which will be very questionable as far as sustainable factor of the fiscal status is concerned. So rapidly growing of population aging can pose serious structural changes to fiscal sustainability. The main two channels, as we all know, shrinking population, working population, who are taxpayers, and increasing government expenditures for aged people towards aged-related programs, particularly healthcare expenditures. So in many high-income countries, pension also plays a very crucial role as important as healthcare spending. So healthcare spending increases with aging, and pensions, retirement, people going out of the working population increases. These two become a burden, an additional burden to the government, and this may threaten fiscal sustainability. So when the population is growing, when the population is aging, government has to take care of these issues into consideration. Of course, the 17 goals which are given under sustainable goals, development goals, they are very, very crucial, definitely. But each goal has to be looked into from the perspective of a working population, and also as an adult, for an adult population, and also as a growing aging population. Then only the government is able to sort out some of the challenges which are faced by this particular group. The side effects also come from a reduction in economic growth in corresponding diminishing productivity. With this circumstance, the tax collection would be lessened, and tax correction will be lessened, expenditure on aged people will be increased, productivity will come down, and the unemployed, the people who are already out of the productivity, they start saving more and they start consuming less. This is a typical characteristic feature of old people. You cannot consider them as a very good consumer. They do consume, but their consumption is having a very, very inelastic nature. Their consumption is very limited and it's very specific. If somebody is taking treatment for his diabetes, that will be a sort of sustained consumption. And they never bother to increase their consumption in like entertaining themselves or spending more on other issues. No, because there is a fear of poverty among them. There is a fear of falling sick for them. There's a fear of insecurity. Nobody is going to take care in the coming days. Is also making them to save more. That is leading to lessening investment and lessening production at national level. So all these can be considered as indirect or side effects of the aging, which reflects on fiscal unsustainability also. So what are the challenges of fiscal sustainability as far as old age or aging population is concerned? So there are numerous challenges and threats to the sustainability of public finance, which can range from institutional challenges, ranging from creating independent fiscal institutions, fiscal responsibility laws, fiscal rules, management of fiscal risk, etc., etc. And we can definitely say that if a country does suffer from a high proportion of outstanding government debt, then it is very vulnerable to interest shocks and a negative growth rate. So a country has to take a lot of give a lot of importance to its fiscal sustainability, because if it is not sustainable, then it's very difficult for a country to take care of all these social security measures which are extendable to the older population. So it has to take care of its debt status, it has to take care of its tax revenue, it has to take care of managing in a very balanced way. Otherwise, it will lose its sustainability in the coming future, and that should not be for the sake of aged population. The demographic impacts on fiscal sustainability can be mentioned like this. The trend of demographic aging presents a major challenge to at present industrialized world, and there are a good number of developing countries also which are already facing the heat of this demographic transition. A recent projections by UN Population Division estimates a 40% increase in world population, aged population, and 7.8 years increase in the median age over the next 40 years. This will definitely assure that the life expectancy which is increased will lead to more number of old population in the world. And fiscal sustainability is considerably impacted by this phenomenon. Definitely, it's going to be a challenge for fiscal sustainability. The imbalance in demographic structure may happen because of many things. Of course, aging is one very evolutionary transition, but other than aging, also you can see a change in the demographic composition in a society where the young mass go off, vanish, and suddenly the population looks very old. And each country has to have stable fiscal stability so that it can manage this old age dependency ratio. Old age dependency ratio is that ratio of population, children and old people population to the working population of any country. And this speaks about how the fertility in that particular region and how the country can think about funding the social securities and also to regulate the retirement age of any population of a country. So demography has a lot of challenges to government in terms of fiscal sustainability issues. And definitely it is a burden to public finance. The G20 community, where India is also a party, they have come out with a lot of work in this regard, and there are yet clear empirical figures to show a decline in government revenue due to population aging. And Japan and Italy have given a clear declining trend as far as this aging is concerned. Countries like Japan, China, Korea, USA, they all have shown that the gross national debt as a percentage of GDP is increasing because of the aging population. In addition to the consequences from the recent financial flux and global economic turbulence, a substantial increase in government spending is also a threat to fiscal balance. So if we consider the government expenditure on public health, most of these countries have increasingly spent a big portion on health expenditures. As the fiscal revenues are getting smaller and the government expenditure is continuing to increase, massive burden on public finance will be reflected, leading to fiscal instability, which is not a good thing for good sustainable development, towards sustainable development. The negative impacts on the society and economy is also very, very clearly shown in many of the cases. The impact of population aging is enormous and multifaceted. For an economy like Japan, Japan is a very good example of this, where the country is very small and it is a highly turbulent region, expecting tsunami now and then. In spite of that, you can see the country working very hard towards the progress, economic development, and also maintaining its productivity and economic growth with an aging population. The reason being how they are managing their fiscal measures. For developing countries, this phenomenon of rapid population aging before sufficient development usually raises economic and social challenges, particularly in terms of sluggish economic growth and fiscal sustainability. So we too have a population transition very prominently. We are seeing the life expectancy increasing and mortality coming down and more number of old people. But as far as development is concerned, we are not fully developed, or we are not developed economy as such. So our population tax revenue is reducing. but government public expenditure is increasing. And this is definitely a burden on our fiscal stability. An indirect impact also comes through productivity and economic growth channels. So less number of working population, less productivity, and less consumption because adults, number of adults are less. All this leading to a sort of pressure on the government, on the society. Taken into consideration the severity of its possible impact on the economy in the face of aging population, it is imperative for both advanced and developing economies to identify and determine such impacts as well as to develop and design appropriate policy responses to ease the negative impact on the society and economy. There are so many measures taken at international level, so many platforms were created to talk about aging way back in 1970s and 80s. In 1982, the first World Assembly on Aging happened in Vienna International Plan of Action on Aging, which speaks about some specific issues like health and nutrition, housing and environment, families, social welfare of old population. And United Nations also in 1991 General Assembly adopted United Nations Principles for Older People, where they have given 18 entitlements for old people related to their independence, participation, care, self-fulfillment, dignity. And 1999 was declared as the International Year of Older Persons. In 2002, Madrid International Plan of Action on Aging also speaks about the significant importance given to the aging population, where 160 governments and intergovernment institutions met and spoke about the opportunities and challenges of population aging. And there are many human rights activities happened which speak about senior citizens and their human rights, the right to food, shelter, clothing, social security, and a lot of work is going on towards this, definitely. But we have to start working now itself as developing countries, though we think it is not very visible, it is not something which is common in a country like India. 2030 is very close by, and by 2030, probably we are going to have a huge addition to our aging population. And it is the responsibility of the governments to gear up to that expectation. And by 2050, almost even the China, which thinks it is not going to have such a transition, is going to have aging as a problem by 2050. And most of the countries, irrespective of their regional background, are going to have this as a common factor, as a common burden on the fiscal stability. And countries have to start thinking, developing countries particularly have to start thinking towards it, because they should not be an additional burden to them in the coming days. It has its, we know we cannot value the importance of this aged population as it is, their experience of their value is immense. But to a country, economically speaking, the impact of aging is going to be a negative one if we are not properly prepare ourselves to face it. The cost of providing care for the elders and a decline in personal savings, retirement entitlements, and instability in the labor market will definitely create a lot of problems if the aging process is not taken care by the government in a proper sense. Sustainable development is very difficult to attain. Probably that may be a hurdle for our sustainable development by 2030. So there are a lot of implications to policy responses. Fiscal policy side, the effectiveness is lessened through lower total labor supply in the economy. The fiscal balance relies heavily on ability of the government to collect tax, and generally income tax is the biggest proportion of total government revenue, and also pension benefits, which are social security measures. And these will be additional burden to the government, and government has to take care of these things in advance so that it can manage its aging population in a better way. And monetary policy may also get disturbed because definitely this population is not very consumer oriented, like the behavior of elderlies regarding consumption is very inelastic, as I told, and their contribution to consumption is very less. Their contribution to production will also become nil, but their social security consumption will increase in the form of pensions and in the form of healthcare measures. So definitely there are some measures, some recommendations which can be given, like improve present allocation of social pensions now itself, so that it will get accumulated over the years and it will not be a burden to the government as it is. Encourage and involve private sector pensions. Insurance Regulation and Development Authority may also be asked to enforce a uniform policy for all insurance companies so that everyone will come into this purview of insurance, and facilities to be provided in the hospital and nursing home so that after one age, all will be considered equally for their health facilities. And economically, we can introduce phased in retirement system, encouraging older workers to remain longer in the labor force. It can be entertained. It is done by many private sectors and in many developed countries, so that the fiscal pressure on the government can be reduced. So it is not completely removing them from the working section, but reducing their work burden, keeping them as a backup so that they can work, and also they can simultaneously train the younger population. So this will be a lesser burden, fiscal burden to the government. Phased in retirement entails a scheme whereby older workers could choose to work fewer hours, yet remain longer in the labor force, including after they retire. And gradual retirement can be beneficial to societies, employers, and workers. And phased in retirement allows continuity in tax revenue also. It is a benefit to the government also. It reduces the expenditure on pension, which holds particular importance for fiscal and macroeconomic stability. And second, older worker can be valuable to organizations, and they're valuable to younger colleagues due to their knowledge and experience. And third, late life work has positive health and perceived well-being consequences for older employees. So in the economic section, we can look for such phased in retirement, and we can look for keeping them for longer, because the working people, when they retire suddenly, it has affected their health, mental and physical health, and make them immobile in many cases. So it is good for their health also, their well-being also, and it's good for the economy. Phasing out them slowly so that they can adjust to the retirement system. By doing that, we can also maintain our fiscal sustainability. So there are at national level also, we have so many policies which are related. Nowadays, the government is more on these issues because of the relevance, and we have a good number of policy measures. And overall, if I just wanted to conclude by saying that, yes, to ensure that the post-2015 development framework truly leaves no one behind, is inclusive of older people along with others, and address the rights and needs of people of all ages. We, the people of the world, insist that population dynamics, including global population aging, must be taken into account across all goals, targets, and indicators for 2030 Sustainable Development Framework to be effective and legitimate. So thank you so much. Hope I'm winding up in time. Thank you.
Any questions? Any clarifications required? Otherwise, I will propose vote of thanks.